Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we have some great news. As some of you should remember, not too long ago we had a little round of voting on selecting the aesthetics of a new map. Well, today, now we finally have a look at this new map. This will be the first new map in the game in, I believe, about 2 years. So saying this is long overdue is a little bit of an understatement here for sure. However, this, along with the few recent developments, is leading me to believe that we might be seeing a little bit of a resurgence of new content like this, and we'll get to that here in a minute. But first, let's take a look at this new map. I'm going to be reading from the DevBlog that published this bit of information. You can find it linked in the description down below. I will, of course, be throwing any relevant images or artwork up on the screen. So, of course, the images of the new map, I'll be putting those up on the screen here in a second and leave them up for you guys to take a peek at. So let's go ahead and dive on in. But yeah, if you want to read along or read aloud, check out the link down below. DevBlog is titled Close Testing New Map. Greeting Captains, a new map has its layout set and enters close testing by volunteers. Earlier we held a voting for a theme of a new map coming to Warships. Big thank you to all who participated in the decision. New map's biome has been selected to be Torres Strait at dusk, and it has been in development ever since. We already had internal tests of the map's layout, and starting now, a next round of testing with our volunteers to polish specific details and identify possible bugs. Preliminary, the map will be tailored for mid to high tier battles. Makes sense when most of the player base plays at. Such areas as a relatively isolated A capture point, a channel between A and B points, and a widely open C point facilitate a diversity of playstyles for an interesting mix of long and close range combat. That said, the visuals of the map are still in development. However, we can share that the map is based on a distant location between Australia and New Guinea, which was a hunting ground for Japanese submarines and a route for the Australian Navy to Port Moresby. It's also home to the historic Green Hill Fort, originally built in the 19th century and later repurposed during World War II. We are aiming to deliver the new map by the end of the year and will announce the exact date later. Therefore, stay tuned for more updates. You will soon have a chance to vote for the map's official name once we're ready to present its final look. So get ready to chart our new course on your maps. Alright, so taking a peek at this, visually, of course, like I said, the map is still in development, and I'm assuming just for the fact that they want us to be able to see the map, and clearly they don't have the screenshots in the dust setting just yet. But from what we can see so far, it looks pretty good visually. When the art department does show up, they do very much work for sure, and that's no exception here from what I'm looking at. Alright, so let's take a little bit of a closer look at the layout of this map. So, as you can see, it's 3 caps. I'm assuming this is the only going to be in domination mode. Granted, they don't clarify one way or another if it's just for a standard or for domination, so given that this is the image that we got, I'm assuming it's just for domination. Alright. So, ABC, going left to right, A cap, incredibly wide open. That's going to be fun. That's going to be probably the cap that you're going to be fighting over for most of the match, while the C and the B caps are getting traded during the rest of the match. You would have some perfect islands north and south of the island to snuggle up next to if you have some radar cruisers. Not exactly sure. Well, if that's about the same scale as most tier 10 maps are, that's probably just enough to get most of the cap and radar range, especially if you have something like the Soviet, 12-kilometer radar. You do have the islands on the more western flank of the A cap that you could potentially easily drive up next to. Like, you can part a Moskva on, the opposite side of these islands from the cap very easily, and just use their 12-kilometer radar to get that cap completely covered in radar. So that's probably what's going to happen on that cap a lot. A lot of destroyers trying to back in and dodging radar back and forth, so that's going to be a pretty tense cap location there. Moving into the center point of the map, you got some nice big islands for cover in between the A and B caps. So again, you could potentially, have a destroyer cap the A cap to be very brave and run the channel and get to the B cap, where you've got a little bit of a Thunderdome set up there. You've got those 3 islands north and 3 islands south of the B cap. Then you've got some islands on the west and eastern side of that B cap, as well as 1 island in the center. That's going to be one hell of a round of Ring Around the Rosie in there for destroyers that are going into that cap, if they do choose to dive the cap. You of course don't have to dive the cap. Probably not a great idea to dive the cap right away, But of course, we do see that happening with destroyers, awkwardly spotting each other on either side of the islands because of assured detection, right? So you got a real Thunderdome there for destroyers at the B cap. Not too much in terms of island cover outside of course, those 6 islands around the outside and the 3 inside of the B cap. You got one ADB island up north, one to the southeast of the B cap. So that's pretty interesting. Lots of cover in the cap, but not so much outside the cap. It depends on, too, how tall these islands are. You can kind of see them in one of the screenshots, but it's rough to judge from this bird's eye view exactly how tall these islands are. They don't look like they're enough to completely block shots from further back, but definitely tall enough to block shots from, mid to close-ish range. So that's, Destroyer Thunderdome there for sure, if they are brave enough to enter into it. Going over to the sea cap, my god, you've got like Flank City over here. Plenty of islands running down the eastern side of that sea cap for you to, pop in and out of or use to break line of sight as you rush down that sea cap. I like that. I like that it's encouraging flanking along that cap. But again, if you are in a good position, southwest, looking at it from the southern spawn, looking at someone pushing north to south, if you're in a good position southwest along the other islands around the southwest side of that sea cap, you can potentially get some pretty good cross shots into the ships that are popping in and out of those islands, running down south. So I like that for sure. C cap a little bit more open, but obviously not as open. It has the A cap there, so a little bit more capping opportunities are present there. But it looks like there are 4 islands around the edge of the C cap. The screenshots they provided are only in 700p. 800 by 450p. So I can't be 100% for sure exactly what type of islands those are, but it looks like there are 4 islands around the corners of the sea cap. So yeah, it looks pretty interesting. Of course, this is all, work in progress, subject to change. It's probably going to change a little bit. I'm sure some islands will get scooted around. Caps may be increased in size, decreased in size. Again, this is all in testing. As far as when this is coming out, like Wargaming said, end of the year. I mean, there's only, 5 months left in the year, so probably November, December-ish, if I had to guess. Gives them time to test it and iron out all the bumps. Now let's talk about the time it took to finally get to this point. So it's been a couple of years since our last new map in the game. And you see, back then, all those years ago, Wargaming put out a roadmap outlining their plan for the course of, what was it, like 2020, 2021, going over their goals for Warships. And in it, of course, we got the Seychelles map being announced, and I believe it was there along with a waterline video where they mentioned that they wanted to get somewhere around the rate of 1 to 2 maps a year in terms of map production, which sounded fantastic. But of course, Russian-Ukraine war happened. Wargaming left Russia. They left behind the St. Petersburg office, which is Lesta, which that was a studio that developed and ran Warships for years. So a lot of the talent obviously got left behind, unfortunately. And since then, Wargaming's been, if you look at like the job listings and such, they've been slowly rebuilding the art team for Warships over the past couple of years. You can't just snap your fingers and put together, a team that's familiar with the engine, that's familiar with the code and all that stuff. The code is very spaghetti code if you haven't done a deep dive into that. So yeah, now of course for the past couple of years we've been getting a lot of copy paste ships, a lot of ships that are a little bit kit bashed. However, recently, if you look at the latest additions to the game, the new US destroyers from Tier 8 Plus, we have new models for the turrets and new gun models as well. The Tier 8 is a refit Fletcher with a new superstructure model, and then the Tier 9 and the Tier 10 are just completely new models in and of themselves. And after that, we're getting the German Panzerschiff line, which are completely new models for the most part. Of course, you got the Grafspee sister, well, 2 of the Grafspee sisters, but then there's some new superstructure involved there. And then from there on up, we have new models in that line. And now we have a completely new map. So it appears that Wargaming is well on its way to getting this new art department spooled up and running. Of course, that's just my conjecture. I don't know if that's confirmed for sure, but I mean, after a string of kit bash ships, when we start getting, new models and such, and then, completely new ships and all that jazz, then a new map, it looks like that's certainly the case for sure. So as far as, how many new maps can we expect? Well, like Wargaming stated all those years ago, their goal was, 1 to 2 a year. I think most players would be fine if we would get like one new map a year. That's not an overly troublesome burden, in my humble opinion. Now, maps, of course, they do take quite a long time to develop. You need to make sure they're balanced and such in terms of, what does this northern flank get? What does the southern flank get? This, that, and the other. So it's not something, of course, I don't want them to just rush through and start cranking out like 5 maps a year or anything. That's a little ridiculous. But I think 1 map a year is what most of you guys would be cool with. And let me know that in the comments down below. If we are going to start seeing new maps on a more regular basis, what rate do you want to see? 1 or 2 a year, 3 a year, 4 a year, 5 a year? Let us know all that jazz in the comments down below. And let us know what you think about this new map. Again, if you want to check it out for yourself, stare at the screenshots for a little bit longer, check out the link in the description down below. But anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed. Have a wonderful Wednesday, wonderful rest of your week. If you did enjoy, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff, and hope to catch you guys in the next one.